Andrew Bopros here. So I just want to do a quick video talking about Jim Harbaugh's recent comments. And, he said a lot, right? I mean, there's a lot of things that he said that were really interesting about the team, how it's progressing, injuries, HIPAA laws, why he's not talking about Junior Colson's injuries, Parham's injuries, all these different things. And there's a lot I want to talk about because it gives a nice insight into how this team is going to be run moving forward. And I think, he gave us a nice little blueprint of things we can expect moving forward. So, guys, let's.
Bull Bros.
Okay, folks, as always, like and subscribe if you do enjoy the content. I'm Andrew Bopros. So again, Jim Harbaugh has really shown a lot of awesomeness, right? Again, they were in San Diego just yesterday. I can't say enough about him. But again, I just kind of want to recap some of the things he talked about at the podium. And again, he called it a fresh coat of paint, right? Every single, camp and OTA day is adding another fresh coat of paint, right? I think that's a pretty cool analogy to think through it, right? You're just getting better, a little more bright, a little more lustrous, a little bit interesting. But again, it's just another coat of paint, another coat of paint, another coat of paint, right? Again, very shortly, we're not going to have anything to talk about for a little while. So they break for quite some time before camp really starts, right? And when we start seeing guys in pads and they're actually hitting. So it's interesting to see where we're at. And again, we did sign one person. I'm going to talk more about that as well too. But it is interesting. He did talk quite a bit how he's very happy because everyone seems healthy and it's kind of a good conversation. I'm talking more about the health issue here in a second. But he did talk about one person, Justin Herbert, and he talked about his conditioning was off the charts, right? He said he could play tight end, he could play edge rusher. He was that good. And I found that interesting. When I thought about him talking about Herbert being able to play any position, it made me think, okay, wait a second. He's looking for very specific metrics about a player, right? That you can measure, right? Maybe his flexibility, his strength, his size. And again, he tested off the chart. So they clearly have a metrics of what they want their players at each position to be. And in his position at quarterback, he is way off the charts, right? He's like, oh, he could play edge rusher. He could play this and that. So it just goes to show you that, this is what this team is looking at from a statistics and analytics perspective to build the team. One person I wanted to talk about here is Tremon Morris-Brash, which is interesting because he was signed as an undrafted free agent. And we didn't even, he came out of the blue, right? We're like, what the hell happened there? Three-year contract, which was beyond shocking for me. And, that's very outside the norm, right? He was signed at OTAs, which is very unusual. But maybe, he, as Justin Herbert said, or as he talked about with Justin Herbert specifically, that he tested off the charts. They said, look, this guy's amazing. We can put him anywhere. And he did very well. He's a very productive player in college at UCF, right? He was undrafted, but man, I was beyond shocked that he was signed immediately like that, which clearly he did something right? But I do think a part of that is really just that he tested off the charts. And so maybe there's a metrics, if you fit within the metrics, okay, look, I can do a lot with you. And the reality is this, you could use them in speed packages, maybe third and longs, where you just want to put all your pass rushers out there and just get after the quarterback. They're going to go third and long. They're going to pass downfield. So it's exciting to see. We'll probably talk more about it on Saturday, but I really want to get your thoughts on Tremon Morris-Brash. My brother did a video, I think on Monday, about him as well. So, but it's a 3-year contract, which I thought was pretty sweet, right? And again, another guy that I think could happen is Zach Hines, right? I think Zach Hines has looked fairly good from what I could tell. I think you talked about him briefly in a couple of different quotes, but this guy really fits what he's trying to do. He's, clearly a good blocker and he's got very good hands. So, again, where is he testing? This is an interesting point, right? And again, we've never heard, coaches for the Chargers at least talk about this, right? Where is this person testing? Where are they, where's their conditioning at, right? And clearly if you come in ready, they want to show people, hey, look, we're going to give people contracts if you show up and actually try hard, right? So very interesting to see. I'm curious. I think this guy probably makes a squad. The other guy is Keem Dent, safety. We'll talk more about the safeties here in a little bit. But going back to what Harbaugh said, he did talk about he's very excited that moving into camp after this break, everyone should be very healthy, right? Talk more about the health thing here in a second here as well. But again, Junior Colson, this is exactly what I want to talk about. He did mention HIPAA. Now, some of you may or may not know this, but I work in cybersecurity, and I also do focus on selling into healthcare, which is HIPAA. So HIPAA information, meaning you have an injury, you're not supposed to disclose it, right? And so he did talk about this in this interview. He's like, look, HIPAA is a regulation from the government, meaning that if he came out and disclosed what happened to Junior Colson, you could get in trouble for having that conversation. He also said the same thing about Parham. He's like, let's just not talk about it, right? I thought that was really interesting, right? So it just goes to show you how Harbaugh is going to communicate moving forward regarding some of these injuries and really where the league is going, right? The NFLPA is probably saying, look, we don't want you disclosing what happens with these players, for contract reasons, right? Oh, he's got a blown knee, right? You don't want people talking about a blown knee because their value drops. So I thought that was really interesting. I took away from that and just thinking, wow, that's how we're going to see communications moving forward. So again, clearly working on some sort of injury, but, Harbaugh doesn't want to talk about it. So I thought that was really interesting. So, but again, he says we're trending toward having a very healthy team going into camp. And again, OTAs are OTAs. Now, mini camps do matter, right? That's when everyone really has to be there. But again, building relationships is the whole point of OTAs. You got the team there, they're getting ready, they're understanding, they're installing the offense and the defense, special teams. Now at this point, they take all the data from what they saw. They take all the data from each player. We might even see some cuts. I'm kind of surprised. I mean, that would not be shocking if we saw a few cuts at this moment where they go back, look at the data and say, all right, well, we didn't really like what we saw with this person, yada, yada. Let's go. This person's available. I'd rather go get this person, see what we see here. Clearly, I think they're going to make some real hard decisions on this team moving forward. So, it'd be very interesting to see. So, I found that really interesting. One thing Harbaugh did talk about specifically is that he has very high expectations, right? And he says when he's in a bad mood, it's because things did not work out. And if I'm in a good mood, things are great. And the expectations were met from what I expect from each, practice and OTA, right? So I thought that was really interesting. And that's a good point, right? Because I'm a competitor myself. I know I play softball, I play pickleball, and I do not like to lose. So, and that's Jim Harbaugh as well. So, but let's talk about the offensive line. He did take some extensive time talking about this. Pipkins is an interesting one, right? So it looks like he most likely is in the pole position to get the right guard position. Whether he gets it or not, we shall see. But I do think that he most likely is the guy at right guard. Now, again, Leatherwood could step up as well, too. I think Leatherwood, guys, that dude is a big behemoth. Now, the other person I think is probably ahead of Leatherwood would be Jamari. Now, my guess is Jamari and Leatherwood will make the team, but I think they'll probably move them around quite a bit, right? So you'll say, okay, Trey Pipkins, your right guard, starting right guard. They're going to move Leatherwood and Jamari around, maybe, right guard, left guard, and try to move them around in different positions. So if somebody goes down, they'll be able to move. Harbaugh specifically talked about that. Most players on the offensive line can play different positions. I've always thought that as well. I've never really understood why people say, oh, he can't move to right guard, he can't move to left guard. It doesn't make sense to me. But the reality is, truly they do have the ability to move around quite a bit. So you might even see Leatherwood moved around in other areas, right? So I'm very curious to see how that's going to play out. And again, he wants big bodies on that line no matter what. So heaven forbid somebody goes down, you can bring somebody in that could step up and be, another good left guard, right guard, so on and so forth, right? So he did mention that centers are a little bit more difficult, right? And so there are quite a few people on our team that can actually play center as well. I think McFadden would be one as well. And we obviously have Hymus, and who knows, Jamari can probably do it as well too. So anyways, he did talk quite a bit about that. But again, he wants to pick the 5 best offensive linemen every single week. So just remember moving forward, if people get banged up, he's going to pick the best 5 and put them out there, which I think is pretty interesting. Let's talk about the rest of the team, and then Jamari clearly is going to be, Rashawn Slater clearly is going to be our left tackle moving forward, then Zion, then obviously Bozeman, and then Trey Pipkins, and then of course Joe Alt. But again, Joe Alt is just a gigantic human being. It's pretty exciting to see what he can do. I mean, this dude is just a behemoth. You know that. I know that. The NFL knows that. The good news is we're going to be physical. This guy's hardly had any injuries. In fact, I don't even think he's had any injuries. He's 21 years old. Guy is just a behemoth. He's still growing. Can you believe that? He's still growing. So, our offensive line is going to be great. He did, and Harbaugh did talk quite a bit about the offensive line and how that's going to be a strength with this team moving forward. He did also talk about safeties. He said, we are very excited about the safety room. You got Derwin James, who we all know is absolutely amazing. He said, arguably some of the best, safeties in the league, which I really think is great, right? He talked quite a bit about, the defense in general coming together. There's some adjustments. But again, he said the safeties are arguably some of the best two safeties in the league with, Derwin James and Alohi Gilman. I think this one's kind of a funny one. Like, well, what's he doing? Is he running from the cops, hitting the fence and about to hop the fence? I don't know. I just think it's kind of a funny photo, but either way, it's pretty cool. It's focused nice, but Alohi Gilman, and I know that when he's on the field, he does a good job. Right. So I like what I'm seeing with him specifically moving forward, but I would say beyond Alohi, we probably have AJ Finley. And it gets thin, right? JT Woods, where is he at right now? I would say Akeem Dent probably is the guy behind these two, but we shall see. But again, it's there's a lot to be said about what was said, regarding Harbaugh specifically. I just feel like, he did also talk about one last thought. He did talk about the defensive line also, and he said the defensive line, he didn't know how it was going to be moving in the OTAs. He feels very confident the defensive line is going to be great. Talked about Puna Ford, talked about Fox, talked about Tito, and he is very impressed with how that group of the defensive line group is moving forward. So, guys, in general, what are your thoughts on OTAs? We're wrapping up right now. We're going to have a bit of a break. We're going to be coming out with some interesting content, so we'll see. But let me know what your thoughts are. Leave a comment down below for the algorithm and hit that subscribe button and hit that like button. I really appreciate it, guys. As always, Andrew Bopros. See you guys in the next one.